All right, so what's going on with it?
When I'm driving, like I said, from 0 to 45, it runs fine. But for some reason, when I get up to like above 50, and then like I slow down and then try to step on the gas again, it starts to flutter. It doesn't feel like transmission, but
the RPM gauge goes up and down?
Yeah.
All right, so what I'm going to do then is hook my scan tool to it, and I'll take it down the road, and I'll text you as soon as I have a diagnosis.
No problem.
All right, so we're coming out here to the old 2016 Chrysler Town Country behind me here. You saw my cousin just drop it off, and he said that it's not the transmission. Famous last words. Let's jump in this bad boy. We'll hook up the scan tool, and we'll find out if it's not the transmission. Okay, so we're inside the 2016 Chrysler Town Country. It does have a check engine light on. Let's set up the X tool for an auto scan. It always makes me nervous when people say it's not this or it's not that. It's usually that's what it is. And he was like, it's not the transmission. I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying famous last words. Let's see. Let's read trouble codes. Oh, well, that's not bad. Thermostat rationality. So there's no transmission codes. I guess that's good. He said it acts really weird around 45 miles an hour. Let's check the misfire data. That's weird. That's the only code in it. I'm not terribly familiar with Chrysler stuff, but I'm sure that there's misfire data. Let's see if we have a cylinder misfiring. Well, I guess we're just gonna have to take it out for a drive. The only code we have is for the thermostat, like below regulating temperature. What I've done right now is I brought up the turbine speed, the output shaft speed, torque converter slip, and trans oil temperature. He said it would happen around 50 miles per hour. So we're gonna go down the road and see how it feels. It's a weird noise. We put sway bar unlinks and struts on the front. I thought maybe we just did the back. Okay, let's see. Something is wrong up there, for sure. I think we did rear though, and I told him it needed front. We'll find out when we get inside. All right, so this 2016 Chrysler van doesn't have a dipstick. Of course, I'm sure if you're watching this, you've experienced the same thing. Apparently you have to buy it separately, which is lame. He doesn't have one, but I want to get a sample of the fluid. So I've got a clean container. I've got a piece of hose with a, we cleaned out our giant syringe, and the dipstick tube is just under a harness. So let's jam it in here and see if we can get a sample of the fluid. All right, so we're just gonna take, oof, it don't look great either. It don't look great. Okay, you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. Let's drip some on a clean paper towel and see how much material's in it. As it soaks in, we'll see an outline of like clutch material or converter material. I don't see any, but man, can you guys see that? So that's our transmission fluid. It's a little dark, less than desirable. It's probably overdue for a service. Luckily, there's not a bunch of metal in it. So the transmission does need a service, it looks like. Trouble with that is not having the dipstick. And if we move forward with the service, the fluid and filter, we're gonna need a dipstick to make sure we get the fluid out. I still haven't felt it act like he was describing. I think maybe our best bet right now might be to let it cool down. Maybe we get it back outside and we just leave it for an hour or so, let the temp come back down. He said it happened on the way here, and I felt just a little, it felt to me like a flare in a shift. I think from 2 to 3, I felt a little bit of a flare, but then I was watching the transmission data and it all looked okay. So I'm not sure. I don't know what to do right now. I hate these situations. We can't bill him for guessing. We can't guess. I don't think that the transmission service would be a bad thing. It's got 147 on it. He probably hasn't ever done it, so it's due, but we don't want to exacerbate a problem either. So we want to check this transmission fluid level. There's a trick to this. We're going to use the oil dipstick. We're going to go over here to the tool cart and we're going to make some marks on this dipstick and we'll be able to check the transmission fluid. Okay, so she's running. Let's dip the transmission. Oh, we got to pull that stupid plug out. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. It bottomed out. Let's see where we're at. Okay. So we're right at the bottom of the hot mark. We're right here. So it's full of fluid. It's not the greatest looking fluid, but we have enough in it. So that's cool. Okay. So last night I didn't get to film it, but my cousin who owns this van came back out and we went for a little drive, and sure enough, it misfired. I was able to access the misfire counter on the X tool, and we found about 172 misfires on cylinder number 3 while we were driving. That was in that drive cycle. So we either have a coil that's going bad, or most likely the spark plugs are just worn right out. So we're going to start to remove the intake manifold so we can gain access to the spark plugs. It's not too bad of a job. It won't be easy like some vehicles are to change plugs on. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and tear it apart. There was that code for the thermostat below operating temperature. So I think we're gonna put a thermostat in it as well. And you guys can follow along. This is number 3 back here. So we'll get our handy cordless ratchet. Let's pull this out. Jeez Louise. So we're looking for any carbon tracking and any cracks in the coil itself. I don't see any. All right, let's get the plug out. I always remove plugs by hand. So let's see. We want to get a look at this number 3. Okay. Oh, it feels like we have it all the way out. We got to grab it with a magnet. So here's the spark plug we took out of it. Now, it doesn't look terrible. There is a giant gap. I don't know if you can see it. I'm trying to focus. So I think what we'll do, before we order parts for this thing, let's find out for sure if it is the plug and not a coil that's getting weak. So since this air tube is so easy to get off, we'll just put this plug back in. We'll tighten it down and we're gonna swap number 1 coil with number 3 and see if we start to develop any misfires on cylinder number 1. It should show up right away. We'll get the scan tool all set up and we'll probably have to move it outside. We don't have an exhaust system set up yet. I need to do that though, so we can run vehicles in here more often. Okay, here we go. Let's fire it up and see if our misfire moves to cylinder number 1 or if it stays on number 3. All right, so we already have one on number 3. I don't want to let this thing run too long and warm up. So we still have none on number 1. Still just 1 count on number 3. Number 1 misfire data, 0. Number 3 misfire data, still just 1. I hate to go just off of 1 misfire. So 0 on number 5. Number 6, 0. 4, 0. 2, 0. Cylinder number 3. Still just 1 count. So I think right now, if we had that 1 count on cylinder number 1, we would say that the coil's getting weak. We still just have that one count. I wish I could get just a couple more. 0 on number 1. Yeah, still number 3, just one count. Okay, let's shut her down before it gets too warm. All right, so I think we're safe to put plugs in it. We didn't get any misfires. Move over to cylinder number 1 right now. And at least it's an easy coil to get to. So we'll call for parts, get stuff brought out here, and we'll go from there. Oops, dropped them. All right, so we're gonna tackle these front spark plugs first. I was always told that you never try and gap iridium plugs. Let's put just a little bit of anti-seize on here. All right, we'll lower him down in there. Alex is next to us over there. He's working on Wesley's Lexus. He's doing some valve cover gaskets, spark plugs, and I'm gonna do the timing belt on that. We kind of got it torn apart. Wes is gonna be here in not too many days. He's gonna fly up and grab his new ride and then drive back to North Carolina, which I wish I had more time to drive that vehicle and make sure that everything's up to snuff. I got to do the timing belt, the water pump service on that Lexus ES330, and take it in, have tires put on it. Let's tighten this one up, and then we got to do the ones in the back. And then we'll put everything back together. Put some antifreeze in it because we replaced that thermostat, and we'll take it for a drive with the scan tool, make sure we don't have any misfires develop. We're gonna watch the misfire data for a minute, let it come up to temperature a little bit, and then we'll take it down the road. We move that coil. Yeah, we got one misfire on cylinder number 1. It might need a coil after all. Let's see if we got anything on cylinder. We got nothing on cylinder number 3. So yeah, we might have to put a coil on that. Okay, we got 0 counts on everything else. Let's see if we increased it all on cylinder number 1. Still just 1 count. Let's go down the road and we'll see how it does. I don't know why I exited out of that. Now last night when he came over, it wasn't misfiring for me, and he came over and we stopped at the end of the driveway and it misfired just a tiny little bit. Not much, but a little tiny bit. So let's go down the road here. Coolant's coming up to temperature, which we'll have to top that off again anyway. Circle around in the mud. I don't know why I did that. Not very smart. Stop here on the side of the road for a second. Let's check our misfire counter. Cylinder number 1. Let's see if we got 2 misfires on number 1. Let's see if we have any on 3. We got 0 on 3. That leads me to believe it's the coil. That misfire transferred. Now we only have 2 misfires. We had 0 on cylinder number 1 last time, so we're gonna have to call and get a coil. All right, so you saw that on the drive where we started picking up misfires on cylinder number 1 now, and that's why we moved that coil over to number 1. That's the coil we labeled. Luckily, the coil's not very expensive. We're gonna pull this air intake back off, and we have a new coil on the way. We'll put a new coil in there, we'll drive it again, and hopefully we have 0 misfires. Okay, let's see if we can fit through here. Super tight. Super tight fit. All right, we made it. Let's get going down the road. Man, everything's turned into mud. It warmed up, we had a bunch of snow, everything froze, and now it's warm and windy, and everything's just mud, straight mud. All right, so let's go down the road. Seems to be doing pretty good. We'll have Christopher drive it again too. There we go, cruising down the road. Checking out what's happening out there. So we'll go up the road, I'll clip here, and then I'll check the misfire data and I'll show you what we found. If we have 0, or if we have a bunch, or just a couple. Okay, we got 0 now on cylinder number 1. Let's check cylinder number 2, 0. Cylinder number 3, 0. 4, 0. 5, 0. And 6. Good. It looks like we've solved it. I'm gonna go ahead and drive it back home, and we're gonna check the coolant temperature on the scan tool and make sure it's up to temp. So that's it. We started with hesitation here and there. We changed the spark plugs, we moved the coil. Still had a slight misfire on the cylinder that we moved the coil to. So we put a coil in it as well, and we changed the thermostat because it was operating below operating temperature. And that'll about wrap it up for the 2016 Chrysler Town Country misfire. So thanks for watching.